I managed to get out by going to a specialist department on the firearms department on traffic. I have never, ever been or accused or formally complained about in 30 years of public service. I was targeted by a group called the Accountability Project. I was asked to join the Liberal Democrats, so I said no.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest is a Reform councillor all the way from Somerset, which is a beautiful part of the UK. I lived in Devon for a year and Somerset was next door, so I know how beautiful Somerset can be. But before I go down memory lane, welcome Stuart Davies to the show.
Hi there, Nick.
Let's jump into this. So you are now a Reform councillor in Somerset. Are you the only one on the council?
Yes, I am, yeah.
You are. What made you jump ship from being an independent councillor to joining Reform?
I've always had an interest in Reform, to be honest. And in 2017, I also had a bit of an interest locally in UKIP. I retired from the police service in 2014, and my interest in politics came to the forefront. And during that time, I moved to a village called Wick St Lawrence, and this village had a councillor, and everybody was sort of. There wasn't really a lot of good things being said. I think she'd moved away from the area at some stage, and such like. And cut a long story really short, I had some planning issues, and I was finding it really, really difficult to contact and deal with the planning department of the council, and it really, to some extent, annoyed me. And a friend of mine was a councillor, and he said to me one day over a coffee, he said, "Stuart, you're better fighting from the inside out than the outside in. If you're that adamant that you don't like the way that they operate in certain things, not just planning, but other things within the town, you should run for councillor." Now, I sort of didn't really take it on board to a certain extent. And then as time went along and the elections would come around the corner, a lot of local people that got to know me within the new village and knew my background, I was a serving magistrate, obviously an ex-police sergeant, thought, they said, "Oh, you should go for it. We need somebody a little bit younger, dare I say it, and a little bit more proactive." So I thought I'd run for the council. Now, I stayed as an independent because, and the reason I stayed as an independent is that politically, I don't feel personally that local governance should be politically biased, if you like. And the way I explained this on the doorstep when I walked around and spoke to the constituents was that if you've got a problem in your local road, maybe, potholes is a big subject in the UK. You've got a pothole in your road and you contact me as your local councillor and say, "I've got this massive pothole, Stuart, can you do something about it?" I'm not going to say to you, "What party do you vote for? Who did you vote for? What party do you support?" I'm not interested. I'm not really not interested. My job is to help that person, no matter what their political background is. And so therefore, when I spoke to people on the doorstep, one of the questions I asked is, "Have you met the candidates for the other parties?" And they said, "No, we've never, in 25 years, one lady in Wick St Lawrence has never, ever, ever had a potential councillor or councillor knock on the door." And I can tell you now, Nick, I got a lot of my votes just for the fact that I knocked on over a week. I knocked on every single door in the two parishes of St George's and Wick St Lawrence. And I spoke to a lot of people, including very, very staunch Labour supporters, unionists, who said, "We're going to vote for you, actually, because we like the fact you're independent and we like the fact that you've knocked on our door to a certain extent." So, I think that gives a background on why I got interested in the council. So,
for people who don't understand, when you stand for council areas are quite small. Hence why independents can do quite well, because you can knock on every door over a weekend in a council area. And if you knock on someone's door, a lot of the time, people don't want to know, especially in the cities. But the people who are interested get to meet you. They get to look into your eyes. They get to ask you a question they've been dying to ask someone for years. And for that councillor never to have knocked on people's doors just goes to show that they thought it was a safe seat, that they didn't have to engage in the nitty-gritty of speaking to the plebs on the doorstep, because we can take them for granted. We need more politicians on the local level, on the street level, to engage people and get them more involved in politics. So well done.
Yeah, it's really important that, Nick, what you just said about engagement, because the problem I've found as a councillor is that public engagement is few and far between. You don't hear, unless something goes seriously wrong, then you don't really hear from your constituents very often. Now, I've started recently doing councillor surgeries. So, and I do it on a Saturday morning when I know most people are off, or can get there between 10 and 12, and it overrun. And I did one a few weeks ago. I had about 8 or 9 people turn up that engaged, that had wanted to complain about a couple of things, but also just wanted to meet me and chat to me. And I've got another one on the 28th of June, because I've got 2 areas, St George's and Wick St Lawrence. And you're quite right. The vote, the turnout for the vote, I think, was 38-40%. It wasn't a great deal. The public engagement is something I'm really concerned about.
Well, you don't think that's high? In Manchester, we have areas for council seats in Manchester that win their seat and turnout is like 16-17%.
Exactly. And this needs to change, Nick. And this is what people need to realise is, when you talk about, let's talk about national politics very quickly. When you talk about Keir Starmer got 9 million votes. This man's ruling the country with 9 million votes, when there's a potentially 54 to 55 million people can vote in this country when you take away children and people that are underage. So out of a 54 to 55 million people within the country, only 9 million people voted for him, and he's making all these massive changes within the country. And I think you have to ask yourself, is that real democracy? Because to me, I don't think it is. And I think it's very deep rooted, that system of voting. And I think that's going to be looked at in during the next election, whatever happens there. I think the way that the vote, there's another example of how many votes the Liberal Democrats got and how many votes, Reform got, and Reform ended up with 4 or 5 MPs, and the Liberal Democrats ended up with 73 or 74 MPs. So there's definitely something there needs to be looked at, in my opinion. But politics aside, I tried to stay independent. So that was and then going back to your question about why I went to Reform, is that unfortunately in January, I was targeted by a group called the Accountability Project, which, in my opinion, and I can only state it as I see it, it was a far left-wing attack on subjective posts that I'd posted, a number of them, and it was reported to the council anonymously. They're a completely anonymous entity. They don't have any platform on social media or on Google or anything. Nobody knows who they are, and they took offence in their particular manner of particular posts that I posted. Nothing too controversial, but it did basically make me feel like I was left out to dry, because the complaint that was made basically stated that because of my subjective views, or the way that they subjectively looked at these views, that I was some sort of raving racist, Islamophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, everything you can throw at me, they basically stated I was. Now, categorically, it was incorrect. They were asked if they wanted to make a formal complaint, which they didn't. So therefore, the council didn't actually take any action whatsoever. But what they did, what happened then was, as an independent councillor, I was aligned with a group, and the group that I was aligned with was the Liberal Democrats. I think of being a little bit naive. I mean, 2 years down the line now, I understand it a lot better. But at the time, a friend of mine said, who was an independent, said, look, there's 4 independents. We're going to join the Liberal Democrats as a little bit of a coalition within North Somerset Council, basically to prevent Labour from taking control. Of course, as soon as he said it in that way, I thought, oh, great, yeah, I'm going to do that because we don't want Labour to take control. So, yeah, okay, that's fine. I was asked to join the Liberal Democrats, so I said no, because there's strict policies on EU, that I don't agree with. So there was no way I was going to join, but I didn't mind being part of a group. Got on with everybody. It was really, really informative because I learned a lot of things. But after this complaint was put in, basically the group voted me off. I think 6 to 11 or whatever, 6 out of the 11 voted me off. And when they voted me off, basically what the Accountability Project was trying to do was cancel me in the positions that I was in, because the positions I was given was based on my background. So I was the head of licensing. Obviously, being a magistrate, I understood how licensing worked, and a lot of the licensing hearings was based on 3 of us, a bit like a magistrate's court, really. I was on planning and regulatory. I was on health scrutiny panel. I was chairman of the Armed Forces Covenant, and I had a few other positions. So I was given a fair few positions for a new councillor, and I really, really took hold of it, really enjoyed it. And basically, I was removed from every single position because of these subjective posts. And we could talk about that if you like, and I can explain a couple of them. But nothing unlawful, nothing outrageous, just a different view. One of the views, which is very simple to talk about, is this. This sort of teaching young children about LGBT in schools at 6, 7 years old. I totally disagree with it. I don't think it should be part of it. I've got a 7-year-old, and she doesn't even know what to wear to school in the mornings, let alone want to know about anything sexual or anything like that. And I just don't agree with it. And one of the posts that I put was a girl, like a caricature of a girl being sick with a rainbow. And controversial, but I still stand by that.
It's not even controversial. We're all sick of the bloody rainbow, aren't we? Let's be honest. We're all sick of it. We've all got pride fatigue now. I'm just completely sick of all the lunacy going on. And we don't have to get into those posts, because you know what? Every one of those posts, I'll put money on that. They're all completely acceptable. But because you was a councillor and you spoke out, and I would imagine it's probably some of the Lib Dems in your group.
Yes, I think so.
You were the instigators of this because they don't want you in their group.
I wouldn't even be surprised, Nick, if somebody, because this group is called the Accountability Project. What makes me laugh is they're called the Accountability Project, but they're not accountable themselves.
Of course they're not.
So I would not be surprised, and I don't mind saying it to you and to the public who get to see this, that I would not be surprised if somebody on the council is a member of that group.
Of course, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
And the problem here, Nick, is that people continually, with people with my views, are just cancelled. And what I'm finding now is I'm actually getting patted on the back. Well done, Stuart. Well done for saying that, because a lot of people won't say, And I want to make it quite clear, because, what I was accused of is that I have never, ever, ever been or accused or formally complained about in 30 years of public service. Never. In my police service, I policed in the city of Bristol, a very diverse ethnic background. I was on firearms, and then I've been a councillor and I've been a magistrate. I've never had a formal complaint. The only people that have ever complained about me was this group, this Accountability Project. And it was unjust. It was quite upsetting to see that the local media took hold of it and put a couple of stories in the paper. But what people don't know, which I found out, Nick, which is really, really interesting, the local reporter for the Western Mercury is actually paid by the BBC. He's actually financed by the BBC. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and I looked it up. And he really had a real pop at me about these posts. And one in particular was the Tommy Robinson post. And what I did is I only joined X on the late January of this year. I've only been on X very, very short period. But when I when I went to America, because I went to America to watch the inauguration with my brother, it was his birthday, and we travelled over there. My brother's birthday was on the day of the inauguration. We went for 5 days and had a bit of a jolly. And I was using X quite a lot because I had a bit of downtime in the hotel. And I shared an Elon Musk post. And you probably know, Elon Musk has been supporting Tommy Robinson financially and with his legal side of things. And Elon Musk had posted the documentary that I'd never seen. And when I was in my hotel room, I thought I'll watch the documentary. Wrongly or rightly, although they said that the documentary was non-disclosable because it went against, certain laws, because some of the filming was secretly filmed it was quite adamant. It was quite evident that the story that the media had told wasn't quite fitting to what the actual documentary said. And I put a post that said Elon Musk post saying you should watch the documentary, or people should watch this, and I stand by that as well, because and my defense was, oh, you're a supporter of Tommy Robinson. Well, actually, if anybody goes back through my social media, Facebook, my X account, I've never supported or openly supported Tommy Robinson or championed Tommy Robinson. But on this particular occasion, I did support and do support Elon Musk and the way that he went about things. So I had an interest through Elon Musk, not through Tommy Robinson. But the headline was, Reform councillor supports Tommy Robinson or something like that. They mentioned it, and they kept mentioning it. And it just became a little bit silly, really, with the press, because they were just trying to, stick the knife in that I'm some sort of Tommy Robinson nutter, which I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I think Nigel Farage has even been asked questions about it, and thinks that he's been treated terribly. Didn't elaborate any more than that. I feel the same. I think that the sentencing for a civil contempt of court was disproportionate. Bit like Lucy Connolly, that was disproportionate, as it's been all over social media. So I'm allowed to have that opinion, and that is still my opinion. I think that he's been awfully treated. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't, but then again, I don't disagree with everything he says. Similar to Elon Musk, I don't agree with everything he says, but there's some stuff that I do agree that he says. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, Nick, to be honest.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, a steep learning curve.
Well, it's bound to be a learning curve, because politics is a dirty business.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was a little bit naive. I actually didn't think it was as bad as it was. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I just want to tell you one other thing. Recently, on the last May the 13th full council meeting, I was removed as the police crime panel councillor. I'm still classed as independent, because under the rules you have to have 3 or more of you to be classed as a party within the North Council. There's only one of me, so I'm still classed as independent. And I was replaced by an independent for no reason at all. I haven't been contacted by anybody within the council. Nobody has told me that I've been relinquished from that position. I was just removed from it and swapped with someone else. And I've also I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I've also been told information that there were people within the council that obviously thought that I was the best candidate because of my police background. I even joined with Avon and Somerset Chief Constable Sarah Crew. I was in the same intake. I have a good rapport with her. I know her. I know John Riley, the Deputy Chief Constable. I work with him at Broadby Road. I know these people. I know the police service inside out. And yet I was replaced. And the only reason I was replaced, and the fact of the matter is because they know that I've joined Reform UK. Simple as that. And it's political discrimination. There's no other word for it. Whether it's just or legal or within the constitution of what the Liberal Democrats can do or the leader of the council can do, that's another question that I'm going to try and find out. But I actually feel like I've been discriminated against, if I was honest. And it's not a very nice feeling.
Yeah, well, my advice would be get used to that, because that's not going away anytime soon. And now Reform are rising in the polls. Not only are you going to be discriminated against now and attacked because of who you are and what you've said, which was nothing wrong with what you said, but you're also going to be attacked now because you're the representative now of the biggest political threat in the country, which is Reform UK. So they're going to do anything they can to destroy you, discredit you in front of the eyes of the voters. Because
my family have said the same, Nick. My family have said the same, and said I now understand, like you said, it is a dirty business, and I have been a bit politically naive. And one thing that I've always done, and I will continue to do, is that I do not treat anybody differently, no matter what part they are. I'm always polite. I'm always courteous. Because they have a different political view to me does not mean that we need to have an argument or fallout. We can agree to disagree. And I don't get dragged in to these insults. I mean, people have called me all sorts on X, Nazi, CUNT, thick, all sorts. some of it I let ride. Some of it, if it's quite explicit, I just block them, because I don't, they've got their reasons for it. That's their business. I'm just not interested in having any sort of, X is a different world to the real world.
Yeah,
I'm not really interested. I'm not really interested in their point of view if they're going to talk like that. I'm quite happy to debate with anyone, but I do find I have noticed that some emails that I've had back from other councillors have been of a completely different style now that I'm a Reform UK member. Very short, concise, and actually a little bit blunt, which was quite eye-opening. One councillor in particular that I'm not going to name emailed me back, and I thought, well, that's a bit short, but that's just...
You're not in their tribe anymore now. The best way of describing it is, can you imagine if you was a Manchester United fan all your life? You went to all the games, all your friends were Manchester United fans, and suddenly you turn up in a pub with a Liverpool shirt on because you've swapped sides. That's exactly how you're being treated now, because politics is tribal, always has been. And to a certain extent, it's understandable, but it's the way it is. I want to jump into you. I want to jump into policing, because I've spent 20 years working with the police, based in police stations. I was never a police officer. I worked for the council, but I was based in police stations, training police, designing projects for the police. And in a couple of minutes, tell me your career in the police.
So I joined the police in I joined the Special Constabulary in 1991 for a couple of years, and then I joined the regular police in 1994. I was based in Bristol, in one of the toughest police stations called Broadbury Road, over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of crimes a year. I was based there for 4 or 5 years, and then I managed to get out by going to a specialist department on the firearms department on traffic, road policing unit, they call it now. But and from there, I was there for about a year, and then I was fortunate enough to get promoted. I passed the exams. You do a written exam, and then you do sort of stations, sort of scenario exam, and I passed. And then I got promoted as a sergeant back to Bristol, and I stayed in Bristol for a while, and then I went back to traffic for a while as a sergeant. And then, unfortunately, my mum died, and I had a career break for a few years. And then when I went back on to, I ended up going to Bridgewater. Then I went to Chard as what they call a neighbourhood policing sergeant. And then I managed to get on the tactical crime unit, which is like a real spearheaded, proactive unit. You basically turn up and you get told what jobs you're going to do anywhere in the force area. It was a very good unit, actually. And then I ended up, for a stint before I had a shoulder operation, I was the assistant chief constable staff officer, which was really, really interesting. You see, in the strategic side of policing, I was going to London, I was going to Scotland, MI5 and such like, and Foreign Affairs. Yeah, so I had a rather mixed career. So really enjoyed it, if I was honest. Really enjoyed it. But policing's definitely changed.
Oh, absolutely. So let me give you this scenario. So at the next general election, you stand for MP. You become an MP. Reform win the election. Farage is now Prime Minister. He gives you the Home Office. You're now the Minister for the Home Office. Policing comes under your remit. How would you fix the police in the UK? Because I spent all my life as pro-police. Like I say, years based in police stations, fully supported the police. Last year, I started a fundraiser for officers injured in the line of duty. But now, as we stand now, I actually call myself someone who's anti-police, because I don't think the police are on our side anymore now. They're a political arm of the establishment, and I refer them now as basically the Gestapo, the Cheka, the Stasi. That's how I feel about the British police. I never used to be like this.
No. I can tell, right, so there's fundamentally things that need to change. There's this recruitment drive that is just recruiting academics with university degrees. That's not a way to be a police officer. I'm not an academic, by far from being an academic, but I still consider myself to be a good police officer. You don't become a firearms officer if you can't make decisions, split-second decisions. You know, my character, my personality, everything was tested during that course. So, you know, you have to have a certain aptitude for being on the street and tackling people and dealing with people in a civil manner, but be able to deal with the highest earners that you meet to the lowest earners that you meet across the board. And I think being an academic coming out of some of the younger, not all of them, by the way, I don't want to stereotype them, but it appears from what I've been told. The thing is, Nick, with me, every time I see a police officer and I get the opportunity, say it's at Costa or they're picking up, I'll stand and talk to them and go, "Hi guys, I used to be a police officer. How you get?" Because I was on the police crime panel, I wanted to know what their interpretation of what's going on with recruitment, because recruitment is the problem. I think recruitment and training. The recruitment is based on academics. You know, years ago, if you were a really good rugby player and you were quite a big chap and you had a bit about you, or you're an ex-serviceman and you had a bit about you, they wanted you to be a police officer. Now what's happening is that because of what you've just explained, you know, the political side of it, the you know, the woke type setup, the DEI type setup, which is going on. I think that the police service is watered down. And actually, somebody asked me the other day this question: what's the difference between now and then? The difference between then, when I was doing it, and especially in the 90s and 2000s, every single police officer on my team, 99% of them, were proactive, get in there, get it sorted, get the job done, lock up, chase, and actively arrest people. That is what we wanted to do, without a shadow of a doubt. What it seems like now is there's this swing towards more of a social worker type approach, which, as you can see from what's happening with PC Castle and the fallout from that, is that actually now senior management are actually witnessing in real time how people are now viewing police officers like PC Castle jumping on this chap, pinning him to the floor. It wouldn't be my way of dealing with it verbally, because I old school, I probably wouldn't use foul language, but just because back then I used to arrest people that were like that. So, you know, but I don't fall out with what he did. Absolutely not. There's no split second chance when somebody might have a knife or somebody's going to do what he did. He got in there, sorted the problem out, pinned him to the ground. Yes, he called him a few things. Yes, he pointed at him, but you know, it's quite right that the discipline panel did not have any problems with the arrest, did not have any problems with the force used. There was no complaint made. There was no injuries, but to sack him because of courtesy to a guy that's, you know, a young lad, 15 years old, and bearing in mind, Nick, as well, 15. These 14, 15-year-old lads are stabbing each other in London every day of the week. These 14, 15-year-old lads are murdering people in London. So there's no, oh, well, he's only 15. Well, no. He's 15 and he's big enough to go around threatening people and carry a knife. He needs to be dealt with. And I think, going back to your point about what to change, I would seriously look at the reason why there's not a lot of retention at the moment. One of the things on the police crime panel that I was told last year is that there's I don't want to state a percentage, because I probably won't be quite right, but there is a significant percentage of new recruits that are dropping out within the 2 years of probation. Now, back in my day, nobody dropped out. That job was a vocation They really wanted to do it. They wanted to get stuck in, and it doesn't seem like that anymore. And I think that, you know, we need to understand. It's very difficult to explain, but people need to have an element of fear. And when you say that, some people go, "Oh, hang on a minute. What do you mean?" But what I mean by that is people, and the judiciary as well, the sentencing, there needs to be an element of fear. If you do a crime and you get caught, you think, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to get put away, or I'm going to get this sentence." That's an element of fear. That's an element of preventative.
It's a deterrent.
A deterrent, exactly that. But younger lads, and I said this on X the other day about these face coverings, there seems to be this culture where young lads can go around, wear face coverings, intimidate and bully and play up wherever they want, because they know there's cameras, they've got these face coverings on. And that's another reason that Lawn Castle, PC Castle, took the action he took. This lad had a face covering. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I think recruitment-wise, they're senior management have lost touch to frontline policing is the answer. And my last point is that people are getting through. I mean, people listening to this are going to say, what are you on about? This is a fact. There are people that join the police service that cannot pass the conflict management part of the training. So I used to be a tactical defense instructor within the police. I taught new recruits how to use the cuffs, how to use the baton, how to do wrist locks and such like. And we used to call it red man training. So you used to get dressed up in a red padded suit, and there would be scenarios played out, and then the new recruits would have to deal with the scenario and strike and stuff. People are failing that, Nick, but getting put through to go and work on the streets. How on earth, if you talk about safety, a lot of what's going on in the country at the moment with immigration, illegal immigration in particular, with policing, is safety-based. We want British people to be safe. And police officers need to be able to act and be, proactive and forceful at times, like PC Castle was, without fear of being sacked. So this man, whether they agreed with the language he used or not, the job that he did wasn't in question. But, this courtesy thing, you're dealing with somebody that had a knife, you're dealing with somebody that's assaulted someone. What do you want? Like I said, it's this social worker. Hi, can I help? Oh, excuse me. Can you just stop a minute? Can I just talk to you? This guy could have pulled a knife. He could have run off. He just got in there and dealt with it. And I don't fall out with that one bit. And I think I sound like I'm being a bit passionate about it because I am. I think it's a real, it's an erosion of what the police service should be. And do you know what, Nick? One other thing before I stop going on is, I'm well aware before the Police and Criminal Evidence Act came in 1984, that prior to that, in the 70s and 80s, there were police officers, we've got to admit it, that were overzealous, heavy-handed. And quite rightly, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act put a lot of that to bed, and we move forward with the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And people that don't know what that is, it's basically the way that police officers have to conduct themselves, from arresting people to detaining people to searching people and so on, and a lot more to it. And the police service then became more professionalised, more accountable. But what's happened now is that fear that, when you were a kid, you get a whack around the head and stuff that they used to, the Bob has come in. Even I remember that. It's gone too far the other way. Instead of becoming centralised, it's gone too far the other way, and you can see it with policing. And now, because of social media and because of these phones with cameras and that and videos, everybody's seeing it. And what I'm really pleased to see is the amount of support that people have given PC Castle, even though he was quite heavy. Like I said, I don't think he was heavy-handed, but people will perceive that he was heavy-handed in the context of the short, I don't know if you know this, but the Dorset Police released a very short clip. So the very short clip was a little bit like the Manchester airport scenario where the police officer kicked that chap. They only showed the little bit that was a bit incriminating. They didn't show the whole story. And PC Castle's quite rightly come out and explained what the whole incident was. There was a group of them, they were all masked up. There was, there's a lot of context that's been missed out. And luckily, I'm a friend of PC Castle from Bournemouth. I've known him for years, and I'm quite privy to exactly what went on. And I've had a lot of conversations with him over the last few days via Facebook text messaging. So, I think there needs to be big changes, but it's going to be a hell of a responsibility for somebody to start pushing against the narrative and pushing against senior management, because unfortunately, without sounding rude, when you look at some of the senior management, you can see that these people are not what you would not be able to operate on frontline policing. Very good strategically and probably very academic, but would you want to see them on a Friday, Saturday night fighting outside a pub with a load of football hooligans? No, you probably wouldn't.
Middle managers.
Yeah.
The middle managers who a middle manager doesn't have to understand what people below them actually do day to day, because they're looking at strategy, they're looking at budgets, looking at other things. And that's what we have in the police now. It's being run by middle managers. And the NHS has shown us, if you allow a service to be run by middle managers, it slowly collapses over time. And it's happening to the police. The police have always been hated by criminals. But this last.
But they used to. The police. You say that, but the criminals used to have a bit of respect for the police. Back in the day when I was policing in the 90s, if you caught someone red-handed, it was like fair cop, mate. And they just want to fight. They just want to fight with the police now, don't they? The Antifa lot.
But that's because there's no deterrence. 20 years ago, you fight with a police officer, you're going to get charged with assaulting a police officer. That'll get you more time than the crime you're actually committing. Now, you might as well punch a police officer, because we see weekly in the newspapers, nothing happens. You can punch police officers in the face. We had an immigrant punch 2 female police officers in the face. Didn't even spend a day in jail.
No. Yeah. I think he got community service, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely crazy.
Well, they've changed that. They've changed the. There's legislation now, isn't there? It's assault of emergency worker that they use within the courts. So
we didn't need that new law. We already had laws for all that. What governments do, as you know, is we have a problem, we can't fix it. Pass the law, it looks like we're doing something about it. We've got enough laws in this country to deal with every problem we've ever had, but we don't enforce them. So what's the point of having new laws? Stuart, thank you for coming along today.
Oh, no, it's great, Nick.
And I've got my fingers crossed that scenario I just painted comes to be. You stand as an MP, reform, win the general election, you become the foreign secretary, and you get an opportunity to fix the police.
Home secretary, not foreign. I'm not very good on my languages.
Home secretary, and you get to fix the police.